Hello YouTube. My parents recently gave me some money to build a computer for them, and I thought it might be worthwhile if I perhaps recorded the process, maybe gave some information on it, to help anyone that was looking to build their first computer. I will say now that obviously there's so many parts on choice that you will have to adapt. These instructions are primarily for this exact setup. I will try and specify if there are changes with certain manufacturers that I know of. Certainly feel free to leave comments asking me for any information or advice on fitting stuff. But don't expect me to be able to definitely give you an answer. There's no guarantee. This is going to be the first part of a 3 or 4 part session. I'm recording on my phone, hence the bad quality. And I've already tried to record this, hence why the disk drive is already in there. And the video corrupted. So I'm going to do it in 3 or 4 parts, just to make sure it's going to work properly. Right, I've got my friend here to hold my phone for me, just to make this easier for me to obviously build while talking you through it. So, without further ado, right. Now, when you build it, the best thing to start on is always the case. Now, I've already taken the liberty of fitting the additional fans that I've got. Obviously, this is the top of the case, this is the back, this is the front, and that's the bottom. You may have a different layout on your case. In this layout, the power supply is at the bottom, and the main motherboard will be at the top. So the processor will be about here, and you'll have a faceplate to go in here, which I will show you in a second. And then you have your expansion bays about here, which, if I take the camera quickly, your expansion bays, and then about here. That's for your graphics card outputs, sound card outputs if you get an additional sound card, or any other device that you get that will fit into your motherboard. On other cases, you'll have the power supply up here, and then the faceplate, this fan bit, and obviously the expansion bays will be just lower down instead. So it's quite simple to work out the differences between the layout. Right, so if I show you fitting the faceplate first. Now that's the faceplate. If you look at the back of your computer, then you'll know exactly what I'm on about from now. Now the trick you want to do is, if I line up the motherboard with how it will be going in the case, the trick you want to do is simply line it up on the motherboard with the outputs, so that you can be definitely sure which way this is going in. Then you literally, without moving it, rotating it, whatever, you then put it in. Now this can be a little bit fiddly sometimes. To prove the point, this is already taking about twice as long to do since since the first recording that corrupted, so that says a lot. So that's nice and simple. Also, you'll notice I've taken both sides off the case and the front off, just to make it easier, because then otherwise you end up with loads of cables all on the case. It looks messy, it's difficult to set stuff up while in the early stages, so for that reason I've taken it out. Right, now to fit the hard drive in the case, it's the exact same process as the disk drive. The disk drive is front loaded, and the hard drive is then loaded actually from the inside of the case. That's one of the reasons you want to fit the hard drive early, because then if you've then got it where you've got the motherboard in, maybe a graphics card, maybe a big bulky graphics card, it makes it very, very hard to then get the hard drive in, especially if you've also got power supply, in this case at the bottom, which will be to about here, which, well, as you can tell, would make it impossible to fit the drive. So basically, you also want to try and make sure you get optimal airflow around the hard drive, because believe it or not, they do actually generate heat. Now, what you want to do is look at where the fan is, and then work out what would be easiest airflow wise for your fan. So in this case, the one below there, it's okay, it wouldn't get very good airflow underneath, but it would get decent airflow above it. In this slot, you would get the benefit of both worlds. You would get the airflow above and below the hard drive. So that's why I'm doing it that way. Another thing to note for future reference is this is a SATA hard drive. chances are, if you're doing a new build, this is the kind of power supply connections you're going to get. So as future reference for when I plug everything in, the long bit here is the power SATA, and the small bit here is the actual data connection for the SATA, and that's the same for the actual disk drive as well. I won't bother trying to zoom in on that because it's the same. Just take my word for it. If you build it, you'll see. Right, so literally with this, just like the disk drive, there are slots in the case which stop you from pushing the drive out of the way, in the sense of it will stay in its bay. It won't go up to the bay above or the bay below. And what you want to try and do is, I don't know how well you can see this, you want to try and line up the screw slots so that you can obviously then screw it in. Now this case, you might be wondering what these are for. These are what's called toolless design. If you ever come across a toolless design case, that's basically what it is. These are little things that are used in it. Basically those go in the screw holes, and then you twist this bit to then lock it in place. If you see, it's very basic but surprisingly effective. So basically, line them up, slot it in, and hopefully it will go in nice and simple. Doesn't always want to, and I just realised I need to move it along one more. Come on. And there you go. Lock it in place, and you're done. You need to do the same on the other side as well. Now, bearing in mind as well, obviously, if you are using, if you don't have a toolless case, then the only difference is you just obviously use screws. Now, I'm sure you know how to use a screwdriver, so I'm not going to insult your intelligence by explaining to you how to put a screw in, as it's nice and simple. So that is the hard drive fitted in the case. It's done. Nice and quick. An important thing to note with the case as well, on the front you need to remove any panels you know you're going to be using. Now, for my parents' computer, they're obviously going to need a disk drive, so I've removed that panel, which is where the disk drive is going to be sitting. Now, I've also removed the 3.5-inch floppy bay because they wanted a SD card reader, so that will fit snugly in there in the floppy bay. So otherwise, nowadays you don't really have reasons to have a floppy drive unless you are setting up a RAID array and you're using an older operating system like XP. So for most uses you shouldn't have to worry about it. It's more of an advanced thing anyway. So anyway, that's the front of the case. Right, I'm not going to fit this right now because of its small size. I know it fits into these horrible long screw connections, so I'm going to actually leave that till last. But you can put a floppy drive in now because they're longer. Right, I'm just going to pause it for now quickly. Right, let's try and work out where to go. Right. Next step is to fit the power supply. Now again, this is something, especially if it's a top-mounted supply, that can be very difficult to fit if you've got the motherboard with the processor and everything else fitted. Now I've actually got a noise reduction kit, so as a reference, if someone else gets one, that just fits over the back of the power supply. Obviously line up the screw holes with the holes they have in there. And then the other thing you want to do is also line up the screws in the back of the case, so you can then work out which way the power supply needs to go in. In this case it's a little more obvious because you actually have the vent at the bottom for this fan to pull air in. So it actually makes it a lot easier. So it's literally a matter of carefully putting it in and lining the screws up and then screwing it in, if I can find the screws. Like I said, this case is probably actually easier. If it's top mounted, it's normally easier to do this lying down how I had it. In this case, as it's bottom mounted, it's got brackets on the bottom, again for noise reduction, so that's going to make it easier. Now, normally, the case will come with all the screws supplied that you needed. In this case, the actual cooling kit came with its own screws, but to keep up the... this case uses black screws, so to keep up with that I'm actually using the screws supplied by the case, but I'm also using the washers that it said to use on this. Now all the time it doesn't want to line up, you're just going to keep ending up with that. So for now I'm going to pause it again, and this is probably going to be the end of part 1. The next stage I will show you what to do with the motherboard.
Okay, cool.